So my name is Neil Griffith. My background is that I was a former teacher, head teacher. I then was director of a government literacy strategy, and now I'm a freelance international consultant. I love travel, and I've been lucky enough to have trained in 62 countries around the world, but not at the moment, as you can imagine. But also you're looking at someone who was a very lucky little boy as he grew up. And you'll discover throughout this session that there is a backstory which tells just why I'm stood training with you today, because it really was because of the wonderful start that I had in life. Now, everything in my life seems to have fitted into place, and almost as if it was meant to have happened, because I was born in Wiltshire and I was brought up by a single parent, my dad, and boy was I lucky. And I'm going to show you a little picture of me being very lucky indeed. This is a picture of me with my dad. Now, I know I look like a little girl, and yes, I once had hair, but we're going to have to live with that. But there is, and can I just say, look, Beatrix Potter wallpaper. What more could you want? But there I am at the very beginning of my life, where so many things were put into place. As a child, I had a joyful time. And of course, it was those days when you could go off and play. Your parents didn't know where you were because you were miles away with no mobile phone. You made sure you came home for tea. But that was the most amazing childhood for me because it was rich, it was experiential, and we had so much freedom that our children will never have again. And I've always been passionate about the role that play plays in children's lives. For me, it was life-changing. But my father didn't just allow us to have that freedom to play, he gave us so much more. And when you look back at your childhood, you often don't sometimes appreciate just how much your parents do for you and how key it was in your life. Because my father would come home from work and we would see him coming down the road towards our house, and we ran to him because we'd been looked after by the next door neighbours, bless them. And his opening words were, "Guess what we're doing tonight?" Oh, well, of course, we took it for granted because we thought every child had a dad like our dad. But what that meant was he had something up his sleeve that we were going to do that night. Sometimes it would be indoors, sometimes it would be outdoors. But we always knew it was going to be exciting. And we did things like, well, let me tell you one of my most wonderful moments that I'll never forget. I came home one night holding my dad's hand in Wellington boots, walking slowly. And the next door neighbour said, "Hey, why's your Neil walking so funny?" And my dad said, "Well, we didn't know where else to put them." Put what? The frog spawn. And what happened was we got to the pond and we forgot the jam jar. So my dad said, if we put them in your wellies and you walk slowly, you won't kill them. Well, that was the tip of the iceberg of our fun. So I had this wonderful, rich start to my life. But then we'd get indoors and these words really were big. He would say to me and my brother, "Who's first?" And whoever got up the stairs and shouted, "I'm ready," and they were in their pyjamas and under the covers, they got their story first. And boy, was that a good story. My dad was just magical. And what I realised was those were the moments where he was giving me my imagination, my creativity. I've now written 40 children's books. Why? Because of my dad. And can I just show you? This is my all-time favourite. And of course I've still got it, as if I could have got rid of my children's books. And this is Wind in the Willows. And every time I said to my dad, "Can we have Wind in the Willows?" I could see his face. It was sort of like, of course we can. He must have been sick of it by the 43rd time. but he knew it was my favourite. Now, wasn't I a lucky little boy? But not all children are that lucky. And I'm going to depress you, and then I'll lift your spirits. In the United Kingdom, before lockdown, the figures we are looking at was that only 1 in every 5 parents read to their children every day. Now, hopefully during lockdown, when we had a lot more time, that figure rose, but I fear that it may well have gone down again. 1 in 5. That's all that are reading to their children. And we've got an issue with men. Dads, you need to get your act together, because we now know that only 1 in 7 dads regularly read to their children. That's heartbreaking. And if you know that something like 20% of our children in the United Kingdom, if you went to their homes, they would not have a single book of their own. Now that breaks my heart. And every time I hear those figures, I keep thinking, wasn't I a lucky boy? Now, I've got all sorts of passions in life. You can see that one of them is eating. I love anything with a calorie. In fact, I can eat anything apart from a gherkin. I love food, but I love children. I love nature, and I'm sure many of you have rediscovered nature in past months. But my 2 big passions are children's play, because I know the impact it has on young children in every aspect of their life. But of course, because of the way I was exposed to stories from a young age, I'm passionate that every child has that chance of loving reading. Now, by loving reading, I mean totally hooked. And I met a little girl when I visited Disneyland. Now, I went and I got annoyed because I didn't know they let children in. But, you know, it's not fair. They've got to go, I suppose. But they were everywhere. They were like a rash. Now, I love children, don't get me wrong, but not on holiday, I have to say. But there we had the parade going before us. And it was the afternoon parade, and I wanted to shake Mickey Mouse's hand. Now, I know there's a man or a woman inside, but you know, you've paid money. I wanted to shake that lovely Mickey Mouse's hand. So, tried to get at him. Could I reach him? Children everywhere. So I thought, right, in the evening, I'm going to shake his hand because this is an evening parade. So I got there 45 minutes early and I held the rope, and I could hear people behind me. How dare they? They said, our children can't see. Well, they should have got there first, shouldn't they? I'm not having it. So there I am, and this child is pushing me. I thought, she pushes me once more. But you know why she was pushing me? Because her mother was trying to drag a book out of her hand, and she said to the child, give me that book, I'm sick of you reading, I've paid £700. I thought, well, you overpaid, I only paid 500. But she said, give me that book and go to the front. She wanted to read her book. She couldn't care less about Mickey Mouse. And so I know this is naughty, but I said, what were you reading? She said, Little Mermaid. I bought it with my own money. All that. Now that's what I hope for every child. That little chance of loving reading and loving it for the rest of their lives. So what this session is about is, how do we give children that chance to love reading for the rest of their lives? Now I'll tell you something, it's not difficult. It is not difficult, but it takes time. And it needs certain things in place if it's going to work. And I'll also tell you, might as well be honest, you can sometimes put everything into place, and just for some children, it just doesn't seem to happen. But if you do certain things, you're nearly guaranteed of getting there. So I'm going to take you through that process. So I've talked to you a lot about my dad because he was a key person in my life. But he wasn't the only key person, because there was another wonderful lady, and I hope that she's in heaven, I can tell you that, but I hope that they can look down and hear, because I'd like her to know just what she did for me. And this is all she did. every morning in our little primary school in Wiltshire, the bell would ring, and what would happen is we had to line up, and you know what it's like, straight arms, no talking, and our teachers would come out to collect us. And I'd watch the teachers and I think, why aren't they like Miss Skedge? Because Mr. Baker came out, but he didn't do it. Oh, look at Mrs. Smedley. She's not doing it. But Miss Skedge always walked out like this. And she'd get to the front and she always had a book in her hands. I thought that before school, because our school had a big tower, she was up there reading. I thought it was a reading tower. It wasn't, it was the water tank, but it doesn't matter because I thought it was a reading tower. And it was the way she, look at what she did with her thumbs. Ooh, it just makes, ooh, I knew she loved her books. Just the way she held it. Oh, what a role model she was. And then when she got into the classroom, this is the bit I loved most of all. She would put her book down on the desk and then she would just go, you know what that means, don't you? See you later. I thought she can't wait till the end of the day and then she can get her book. No, I wanted to be like that. She was so powerful and had such a powerful influence on me. So Miss Skedge, thank you. But you see, that's the point. I was surrounded by significant adults. And significant adults are crucial. We know that most children who are avid readers come from homes where at least one parent, or sometimes it can be grandparent, older brother, it can be, but someone significant in that family is an avid reader. And I kept saying to you, I want every child to love reading, but why? Well, it is fairly obvious, but let me just outline why. Number one, if you love reading, it's lovely. And we want that for every child. But we also know that children who read avidly are the ones that do best in education. We have research after research that proves that. But it also means that these children who are reading have bigger brains because you're filling them with things. Sometimes they're fictional, sometimes they're non-fiction, but you're filling your head with crucial things. Also, what you're doing is you're exposing children to imagination and creativity, and that certainly is the proof for me. I know I'm lucky enough to be imaginative, but you can't just click. It was because of that grounding when stories were being read to me. But we also know it gives you the gift of language because you're acquiring that language, and you can tell already, boy, can he talk. And I was very lucky because there used to be a phrase when I was a young child, and it was, be seen and not heard, young man. No, no, no. My dad would say to me, I expect you to be seen and heard. We were encouraged when visitors came to the home to talk. He would look at us with his eyes if we weren't saying anything. And so we were never rude, we never interrupted, but he expected us to engage with other people. And I'm so glad because that was a gift that he gave to me. And so it's a no-brainer. Of course we want children to be avid readers because the more you read, the more you want to read, and it then gives you access to every area of learning.